do you want me to?
What if I just plug in a headphone in my phone and like, does that turn it off? Because that doesn't matter, does it?
Let's find out.
All right, let's see. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, hey, it is what it is.
All right, everyone, we are live. Rosalyn and Jazmine, we're here to talk about the energy of forgiveness. So thank you for those joining live or on the replay. So this video will be on my Facebook page as well as my IGTV. And so, yeah, good discussion that we're going to have today on forgiveness. I know it's a hefty subject.
It's not a fun one, that's for sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is so incredibly important for healing. And that's what we do, you know, psychic medium, energy healer, you know, when you're in the spiritual arts, if you will. I mean, that's what this is all about, is healing
100%.
the spirit. So, yeah. So with forgiveness, what would you say, Jazz, when it comes to your clients, do you get a lot of people who have a hard time with letting go?
Oh, 100%. That's probably one of the hardest things as a human to do in the first place. Not only of letting go of the pain someone else caused you, but the trauma in itself. Like, letting go is the hardest thing ever. I'm with you guys on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do your readings, then what do you find that you probably say majority of the time, like when it comes to helping people kind of heal with that? And I'm pretty sure we say similar things, but what would you say that you say the most?
Honestly, probably it's more about taking back your power, because when it comes to forgiveness, and you hear this all the time, you don't forgive the person for the person, you forgive them for yourself. And for me, you have to start with one, awareness that you don't have forgiveness for this person. There are emotions that you're dealing with that are still connected to that. But two, that you have the power to change that, to heal from that, to feel better from that. Now, is it easy? No, but everyone can take those baby steps to get there. So like, I would even ask you, what is the process of forgiveness? Like, how do you even start when there's so much anger and confusion and hurt behind all of it?
So the first thing that I normally address is, you know, that there is a lesson in what is happening. There's a lesson in everything. Like I always say, everything is an opportunity to learn something. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, that what the other person did is okay. Oftentimes it's not. I've had clients who've had some pretty, I could not, like, let's put it this way, atrocious, I could not even imagine going, and I've been through some shit myself, but like I couldn't imagine some of the other things that my clients have been through and what they heal from before they even got to me. But the thing is, when it comes to what it is that they experienced, there is a lesson in all of it. And one of the things, and here's, I will say this, there is one thing that I talk about, it's a little bit more on the esoteric side, but Colin Tipping wrote the book a while back. I don't know if you've heard of it, Radical Forgiveness.
I've heard.
Where he talks about that the contracts that we have with people before we incarnate.
Yeah. I do.
And so there's going to be someone who's going to be the bad guy in our lives, and then we're going to be the bad guy in someone else's life. I'm certainly not devoid of that. You know, as far as I have come, I've been the bad person in another person's story or two.
Me too. So I'm definitely the devil in other people's stories, but that's a different conversation.
But the thing is, it's a lesson both ways.
Oh, 100%. I learned some of the best lessons through being that person.
Right.
But that brings me then forgiving yourself, because sometimes you act in a way that isn't who you are. How do you forgive this old version of yourself while still accepting that that's who you are?
Yeah, that is a tough one. I do, and we'll get to doing a particular exercise on that towards the end, because there's a visualization that I take my clients through. So we're all going to get a chance, if you're on here in a little bit, we're all going to get a chance to do that, either for yourself or if there's someone else that you need to forgive. But I have definitely found that forgiving myself was a lot harder than other people, even if other people really did things that were extremely hurtful. I still found it a lot harder to forgive myself. Would you say you've experienced the same?
Oh, 100%. So for everyone out there, I'm pretty open and honest with my shadow work. I have someone who is in my family who really just never allowed my truth to be told, my authenticity to be act like true.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started the forgiveness process, I realized I was more mad at myself for not realizing it sooner, for not having the control sooner. And so for me, I think I had to forgive myself honestly for being just naive, for not putting in the effort in myself. And I'm gonna cry even thinking about it, because everyone has your own standards of who you're supposed to be, right? Everyone in our own mind has a vision of who they are. And when you go so off track, you just wonder, how could that part of you be part of you? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
then so I guess that's when the shadow work comes in, and you have to go face to face with that person and be like, you know what? I see your pain. I'm going to give you grace. I feel you. I love you. Thank you for all the things that you have taught me, but I no longer need you in my life. And I forgive you for not knowing. And then you kind of just walk away. Like, you could even have a whole story in your head. I just pictured all of that in my head.
Yeah.
And it's just so freeing. The moment you walk away, you just feel light.
Yeah. And what I think that has a lot to do with, though, is that when it's almost like when we're holding something against ourselves, we're doing two things that typically people have the hardest time with, and that's rejection and abandonment. And we end up rejecting and abandoning that part of ourselves where we felt like we made a mistake. We didn't know how to handle something because it was the first time we went through something. We were traumatized, whatever the case was. And we put in coping mechanisms at that time that now they don't serve us. But then now when we do the forgiveness, then we're being able to integrate that back into us, and we can end up feeling a little bit more whole, a little bit more complete in a way that we didn't before, and it's interesting what that feels like once we actually do that. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so hard. Because you want to hold on to it. You're like, that person wronged me and did me dirty for X amount of years. Like, they set me up for failure. You could say all these things in the world to put the blame on them. And while they did hurt you, your emotions are so valid, whatever it is. But you can't change your life until you give yourself back that power and then use that power to change your life. And that's really what it comes down to. How much of your power are you giving away to someone who doesn't care that you're hurting?
Yeah. Right.
Or even if they do care you're hurting,
they might not even realize that you're still hurting.
Oh my goodness.
Too. That's the other thing, is we're still constantly thinking about the person, what they did to us. It could be 5 years later and they have no clue. They're going on with their lives. They're just, and we're the ones who are energetically according to them.
Yes.
And spilling our energy over to that other person, and they have no idea. It's so strange how that happens.
Idea. That's so even when I was experiencing all that, I was starting to get so angry for so many years at my mom, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to speak my truth. And I tell her, and she was like, I never knew. I'm like, All right, Jazmine. I literally suffered for nothing because all I needed to say was tell her. And then you can move from there, whether they show you X, Y, and Z or they don't show you, then you can maneuver through that. But when it comes to forgiveness, speaking your truth, I feel like is one of the biggest parts of that. And I think a lot of people skim over that, especially when it comes to family, because you don't want to hurt these people. Because a lot of the times we'll push it under the rug and they'll stay part of our circle. So you don't want to hurt your circle, but you're pushing down your truth. You're pushing down who you are, which makes it almost impossible to really, truly forgive in the anyways.
That's a great connection. I don't want to step on your thought, but wow. No, keep going. Keep going.
No, I think I just did it. I'm like, okay, that was enough for me. But no, it's a big deal to, it's not the validation you need from someone else when you speak it. It's the validation for yourself that you need out. Like when you keep things to yourself, you can go crazy. Sometimes you need to say it out loud, whether it gets validated or not, it validates it for you. And your perception is everything. So do what you need to do to fix that perception so you can have a better life for yourself, which could involve conversations you don't want to have, things like that, you know. Yeah. So I would ask you, what was through the forgiveness journey, you learned so much about other people, about yourself. What was your favorite and least favorite thing about the least favorite things I got lists for, but what was your favorite and least favorite thing about that journey?
The anger, I would say, it was probably the least favorite. And so, for those who are newer to myself or, to us having our conversations, like I left a religious cult in my mid-30s, went through a divorce, and that's basically when my whole spiritual awakening happened. But when I came out of the church, I realized how duped I was. With so many things that I held to be my truth for all of my life. And then when I realized that things really weren't what they seemed or what I thought that they were, I had a lot of anger. And when you're holding on to the anger for so long, you can't forgive. You can't. It's like this shift that needs to happen where you let go. Like, I'm not going to be angry anymore. Like, you have to actually you have to make the decision every day that I'm not going to be upset over this anymore. And instead, I'm going to let it go and be like, this is now a piece of my past, and I'm going to leave it there. And that was probably my least favorite because, thinking about it now, it's still affecting my family. It's affecting my son. And that's a newer story because he's choosing that path. And I had to forgive myself because I brought him up in that path when he was a baby. And so for me to kind of go, holy shit, I feel responsible. Like, I had to do not only forgiveness work on my previous life or, what was my previous life, but even now how it can still infiltrate into my life in this very indirect way.
Oh, 100%.
So my favorite part is the liberation of the energy of going, oh my gosh, I'm free. And that's the only way that you can feel free is when you're not holding on to anything. So anything from the past, anything that's currently going on that could really trigger you, when you exercise your ability to work through the triggers, so your refractory period is so much shorter, then the freer you feel on a more frequent basis. And, there's always going to be something, but like, I promise you, like, the more that you do forgiveness work or work towards forgiveness on a regular basis, it's just so much better because you don't feel bogged down in a way that it's almost like you can't explain. When you hold on to that anger, shame, all that stuff from whatever happened to you in the past, it feels like something is holding you down under the water and you can't get up.
It changes you, honestly, as a person. It truly changes you. And I've noticed that, like, more in my relationships. My man is a mirror for me, but he's also, unfortunately, sometimes the person I let things out on because he's the only person I'm around. And then I was just noticing, I'm like, I used to never be this angry. So why am I still holding on to something? But you brought something up that I wanted to touch on. Leaving a piece of it's about leaving that piece in the past. The reason that's really hard, I feel like, for people is because they're so attached to who they think they are and who they think they're supposed to stay. People have a hard time shifting, changing, flowing when you can let go of the control you think you're supposed to have on your own life and other people's decisions. That's where you can start. But then you also said something else that I want everyone to really pay attention to. This isn't an overnight process. You have to take these steps multiple times a day, every day, until one day you just like slowly stop thinking about it. You stop carrying it. And even like for me today, I'm still in this process of forgiveness, and I could feel my anger slowly coming out. And I was like, wait, I don't need this. I'm safe now. That person, I learned my lesson. That person is at a distance. I set my boundaries. That person can no longer hurt me. Keep that in mind too. Set your boundaries. But you have to get really comfortable with detaching yourself from who you think you were or who you thought you're supposed to be or whatever the scenario is for you. For me, that used to be really, really hard because I was carefree, fun, the life of the party. I didn't have to worry about bills because I didn't think I was going to live in general. So I was just going with the flow. So even through the process of forgiving, again, you're forgiving two people, right? I'm forgiving myself, but I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I had a question for you. The question I think I have is, for you personally, what was the choice or the moment that made you take action? Because a lot of times people will be on that fence for a lot of their lives. What made you cross that fence? Because it's hard, by the way, y'all. It's hard.
So when I was suffering through depression and anxiety, I became suicidal and was hospitalized for that. And through the whole healing process, like initially through group therapy and stuff like that, I honestly did not realize how angry I was. I did such a good job of holding things in. And to be honest, when I was in that religion or that cult, there was a lot of spiritual bypassing. And so when you do that, you kind of cover over emotions that you've been holding on to or wrongs that you have felt or endured, like with positive, fluffy, happy things. And so I actually had all of this anger coming to the surface. And in order for me to fully release it, I had to actually forgive. And that was super, super hard because I think you hit the nail on the head. You identify with the experience or the trauma. You are now the victim. You are now the survivor. And you end up holding on to that because the emotions are so strong and so ingrained. And there's a whole neurophysical thing or neuropathologic thing that happens with this too. But we end up becoming very addicted to those emotions because they make us feel alive, and they, in a way, give us this weird, twisted sense of purpose.
I would say comfort too.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you have people kind of feeling sorry for you, when you have people who, they can relate or whatever, then it ends up feeding into that. And so there was a lot that I had to realize, like I identified with that. I identified with being this survivor. And yeah, I am, but like now I don't, if I had to tell the story, it doesn't affect me the same way. I don't
Yeah.
I don't get angry. I don't, I'm not in tears talking about it anymore. So, and that's kind of when you know that you've healed and you've really let go, because it actually kind of feels like you're talking about a different person now. So
It does.
mhm.
It
Yeah.
does. So for you, what would you say your first action step was? Because for me, it was, and this is going to sound so bad, but my mom was calling me one day and she was suicidal. And that's just an example of how our dynamic is. She's calling me, she has like friends and everything,
Yeah.
but I'm the one that's supposed to save her. But I was living 5 hours away. And all of a sudden, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. And I just blurted everything I felt out. That was the start of my true healing and forgiveness path. What would you say yours was?
So I think for me, because at the time I'm going back to when this was, what, 2013, 2014 with my depression. It was really the wake up call where one of the times that I went to the hospital for the depression, my ex, we had just separated, and he told my parents that I went to the hospital. I didn't want them to know. And then my mom comes in. So interesting. We got mom stories. My mom comes in and she's like, "What?" She goes, the first thing she says to me, she goes, "You think you had it? You think you have it bad? I have it worse than you."
Oh, my definition
And
of my mother.
and then I go, "Really? Have you been through a divorce?" And she didn't say anything.
She'd have no idea what that feels like.
But she walks in, she comes into my room, and that was the first thing that she says. Not like, "Are you okay?" Not like, so I had to, it was more along the lines of like, I started to slowly stand up for myself and separate her stuff from mine, because she kept doing a lot of projection and things like that. And I had a lot, it's so interesting because even though my mom's the feminine, she's also very much in the masculine energy. So I had a lot of masculine wounding here to work through because of her, not so much my dad, but because of her.
It makes so much sense. And that's so interesting too. Like, it's so interesting how similar our stories are. Because my mom was a lot like that as well. Like, one of the most recent times was I finally opened up to her about me being raped. Never said it out loud before. She had no idea. The first thing she says is, "Didn't you already have sex with him though?" I'm like, "I just told you I was raped and you're putting the blame on me because she was sexually molested growing up." So her trauma always had to top our trauma every single time. But I think through the forgiveness is sometimes you have to allow yourself to feel that anger because that anger is telling you something. What I read before is that anger is the child in you knowing that you're being wronged. And so now you got to take the actions to fix that, to set those boundaries, to tell people, this is how I want to be treated. You can't treat me like this. If this is not okay and you can't do it, you need to go away. Boundaries are a huge deal in forgiveness. So if you don't know how to set a boundary, you have to start there. Well, awareness, but that's awareness. But start there because your emotions are telling you something. So get down to the bottom of those emotions, and then you can figure out more of why do you feel this way? Why are you acting this way? And what can I do to pivot that, to change that?
Yeah, no, that's excellent point. Boundaries are everything. When it comes to energy, boundaries are like, tough. It's like you cannot skip over that part.
No, you really can't. I tried.
Yeah, we all tried, and I didn't grow up with any boundaries too.
Me neither.
So enforcing them, creating them and enforcing them is like super, super hard. Because we get afraid, right? We're afraid that now we're going to lose people. We're going to lose love where the love was pretty much conditional to begin with,
Yep. Amen.
So,
learned that the hard way too.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think is the hardest part? Like, why do you think people, and I know we're kind of we've been kind of talking about it already, but like when you're working with your clients, what do you think it is that holds them back from forgiving? Is it the whole, like, because I've had people say, even use spiritual terms to be like, well, I can't wait to see their karma come around, or I can't wait, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like you're
still mad, homie. You're still mad. That's a really good question, because honestly, I don't even think they are aware enough to know what that is. But from what my viewpoint would be, it is the comfort zone. Here's the thing. When you have to forgive someone, there's usually also a pattern in your life with the thing you're forgiving. Does that make sense? Do you find that to be accurate?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
So, when you're trying to acknowledge one thing, it is so ingrained in them that they are this way for these reasons that you have to almost start from the beginning. And so, like, even my stuff, like when it comes to my forgiveness, like of my mother, it didn't start when I just realized it at 20 whatever years old. It started when I was a child, and I developed those things about me. Also, no one wants to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to hear that's number one. No one ever wants to hear that they have control to change their life. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because then they can't put their life blame on someone else. And I think that is the hardest thing about people don't want to forgive, because then they have to come to the conclusion that they allowed themselves to be in this cycle for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, don't take that like to like point. I don't want you to say your feelings are valid, everybody. Your feelings are valid. But at some point, we have to go from victim to that's part of my story, and it is what it is, and I'm going to learn from it, and we're going to grow from it. If you stay a victim, that is your problem. And I think people don't want to hear that.
They don't. So it is interesting, because I was just talking about this morning with the student about, we were talking about the crown chakra and how it's about our personal sovereignty. And, you know, I was explaining to her how when working with clients, most times we're working in the lower chakra regions where there's survival, you know, fear, shame, guilt and martyrdom and victimhood, all of that. Shame. And I said, people want to get over to the point where they can feel completely empowered or feel completely in love with themselves, but it's a huge jump, because they need to work on those things first in order to understand that to take your power back, you have to take complete responsibility. And that's where people kind of go, I don't know about this, right? And if they can continue to put, like you said, put the blame on somebody else, then they feel relieved of that. And the thing is, and I get it, it's not easy.
It's not
to take responsibility, but when you kind of go, okay, my part in this, even though I could have been victimized, traumatized, whatever the case may be, my part in this is that I'm holding on. Then that's kind of, you know, where it's like, okay, well then you have the power to let go. And so, but the thing I gotta say, the thing is, if you want to relieve major karma, especially from past lives, this is how to do it. Forgiveness is how to do it.
It really is, because it like you said before, just set you free. And when you get to that level of freedom that no one can hold you down, you almost become unstoppable in a way that's hard to explain, honestly. You feel it in like your bones. You're just like, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. I could be successful in whatever. Like, I am no longer the labels other people put on me or I put on myself because of my traumas. And that is freeing.
Absolutely. And that's essentially what we want. If you want freedom, you have to be really, really good at forgiveness. So, you know, and I think we've touched on a number of points. So like, one, always remember that there's a lesson, right? That there's a lesson in here for both parties, really, like, or everyone who is involved. Understanding that you have the power. You're the one who's actually in control of that in your field. You don't have to be suffering in your aura, in your field, if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then what else did we touch on? So just an understanding too. I mean, if this resonates with you, that you contracted with this individual to learn a specific lesson when you came here.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be mad at them.
You really can't. Unfortunately, you can't. But what I will say is, because obviously we're healers, so I do a lot of self-healing. You have to know when you can't fix yourself. And I think that's really important, because I was trying this forgiveness process for a few months, and it was to the point where I started going down a depressive episode. I was blocking everybody off. I was getting angry. And I realized, I'm like, okay, there's something I'm missing, that I can't get a clear picture and I can't move forward. So personally, this was just this year too. I started going to therapy, and then honestly, it just took 3 sessions, and the therapist was like, so you're codependent. I'm like, thank you. I needed to know what my issue was so I could fix it. And all I needed was that label. So for everyone out there, what we talk about is not easy. If you're not connected with your intuition or yourself, it's almost near impossible to maneuver through all this. It's okay to ask for help. Forgiveness is so necessary for your well-being, that is part of the mental health that you need to take care of, because then it turns physically and all of that. Eventually you're just going to get sick. But everyone, go get help, whether it's from someone who can read your energy, a psychic or a therapist or a doctor. This stuff is not easy. You don't have to do it by yourself either.
It was interesting because the first time when I made contact with my first spiritual teacher, I've had several mentors over the years, but my first one, she was the one, and mind you, I had already been going to therapy and everything. She was like, you have PTSD. And crazy enough, no other counselor or therapist had said that to me at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah. I had one doctor who, when I first went into the hospital, she was like, do yourself a favor, forgive and move on. And it was like,
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So
let me just do that.
Not that she wasn't incorrect, but I was like, dude,
how do I do that? What do you mean?
I still got all of this stuff going on. And I went, so when I went to see my first spiritual teacher, she said, yeah, you have PTSD. She's like, she went like this. She goes, you need to remind yourself that you're safe. And I was like, holy shit, she's right. I'm like, no wonder why I'm walking around, like the way that with the feelings that I was having, because I experienced a different form of PTSD. And so you're totally right. It's helpful. And it doesn't matter where the information comes from.
No.
But if you have someone who can just kind of switch that little thing for you, that kind of makes the light bulbs go off, and it's like, oh, now I know what I need to do.
Yes. So interesting too, my favorite affirmation the past probably year is, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So are you ready to do the visualization and kind of
I'm excited
how everyone feels? So if there is someone that you need to forgive, so anyone who is online with us right now, or if you're watching this on the replay, if there's someone that you need to forgive, including yourself, it could be a younger version of yourself. We're just going to walk through this, okay? It's not, if some emotions come up for you, just let them come up, let them go. All right. And I promise you, you're going to feel better, once we're done. Okay. So go ahead and just kind of get centered in your seat, relaxing your shoulders, your neck, and your jaw. Easy breath in and out. And just kind of slow your breathing down. When your breathing is slower, it signals your body that you're safe. And closing your eyes turns your attention inward. And now that you have that person in mind that you want to forgive, I want you to imagine your perfect place. a place that makes you feel very peaceful, safe, content. It doesn't matter if it's the beach or a garden, a lake, the mountains. You get to pick. And I want you to imagine that you're sitting there and just taking in the view, just grateful to be there. And that scenery really puts you into the present moment. That's what nature does. And off to your left, you see that person that you need to forgive. So whoever that is, and that could include your younger version of yourself, you see that person coming towards you and you notice their body language. You notice how they're walking. Maybe perhaps you might pick up on the mood that they're on or that they're in. And they come, they sit next to you, and just kind of notice the expression on their face. And as you're looking at them, they say to you, really, really need to talk. There's something that I have to get off my chest. And if this person wronged you in the past, or if this is a younger version of yourself that just didn't know any better, you say to them, go ahead, say whatever it is that you need to say. I'm open ears, just you can say whatever it is that you need to. And they start telling you what they learned. If they hurt you in the past, they realized, you know what, I was hurt too. I was hurting, I was in pain. I was brought up a certain way, and I just didn't know any better. I was doing the very best that I could with what I knew at the time. If it was a younger version of yourself, that younger version may be telling you, I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to make it. I did not know what else to do. I had no one else to lean on. I had no one else to talk to. And so this is what I did. And I see what I could have done differently. So you're paying attention to that person's facial expressions. Maybe perhaps their eyes might be welling with tears. Maybe perhaps you can feel the frustration, the sadness, the anger that's coming off their body. And you begin to feel compassion. You begin to feel a little bit more of empathy, understanding that they just didn't know. You reach out with your hand and you say, I forgive you. And you can feel the tension off that person or that younger version of yourself begin to just melt. As if your words just soothed that person completely. And you can tell that there's a relief. There's a release and a relief. And if you are so moved, you reach out, you give this person a hug. You give this younger version of yourself a hug. And you say, it's okay, it's in the past. It's over. And that person or that younger version of yourself reaches out and says, thank you so much. So as you let go, this other person, this younger version of yourself stands up. You notice the body language is a little bit different now. a little bit more confident, a little bit more at ease. And you say goodbye as you watch them walk away towards the left and you begin to take in the scenery. Again, feeling much more expanded, feeling much more grateful in your heart for having the ability to do this, for making the decision that you did for yourself and releasing this other person. And just take an easy breath in and out, feeling all tensions melt away. One more time, easy breath in and longer on the exhale. And open your eyes.
Oh, I forgot I was on the camera. That was comfortable. That was nice.
Yeah, good. If anyone else has any feedback or wants to share, feel free to do that. But yeah, so I love that one. I have done that a number of times on myself, for family. If you're a parent, you can even do this for your child. Like sometimes we don't even realize as parents that we could hold things against our children sometimes too. But yes, so what's really cool about this is that it works even if you don't actually talk to that person in real life, because there's going to be times that you can't, or the person maybe has passed on, or it's just not going to be a possible thing right now to talk to that person face to face. And so when we do this, our brain doesn't know the difference between a real or imagined experience, and therefore the body registers it as real. And so when you're working with your energy, which is thoughts, ideas, and your feelings, and you're experiencing this exchange of forgiveness and acceptance, your body is going to believe it, which is the coolest thing. So,
it's so interesting how a lot of life is tricking your mind into being a mind that you want it to be. You're literally mind effing yourself all the time. So weird.
That is very, very true. That's essentially it. We just have to remember that we're energetic beings. So like the moment that we start formulating, playing around with our thoughts, we have to remember that those are real. So you're right. We do that to ourselves all the time. But if we can use it to our advantage, then we can begin to manage our energy so much better and begin to feel more of this sense of balance and evenness, majority of the time.
Yes, I'm so relaxed right now. I'm like, I can't even think, honestly. I'm like, this is good. We need to do this more often. But I love that because I love like what you do, because these are things that people can repeat at a different time. Do it again. Here's the thing. There's so many people who want to, how do I say this? Maybe just gatekeep information. Oh, you got to pay for this to get this, which is totally understandable. Everyone is worthy of something, but there's also just things like this that are just so beneficial. If you could just add it into your routine, you can set yourself free. I love it.
Just whenever you need to, you know what I mean? It's like, if you know, we know.
Yes.
We know when we're holding on to stuff. Right?
Yes.
And so if that's the case, when you're aware, when you know, just put on some music, like I like to go onto YouTube and I look up the hertz, like a certain frequency with meditation music. I'll put it on and then I'll walk myself through the same thing I just did.
You know what's so intriguing? Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, that's pretty much it. I'll like be sobbing by the end, and I'm like, oh, that was good.
That's what I needed.
Yeah,
it's so interesting because like I do that, but in a very so different. So like for me, I started walking on the treadmill, running on the treadmill. It's been like 3 years now, and I would just start meditating. And it's like when I'm running, I shed the parts of me that I don't longer need. And I can
Love it.
literally, I will visualize it over and over. If I'm having issues with forgiveness and whatever it is, I will literally just say these affirmations. I am living this way. I forgive this person. And it's like I'm leaving the past in the past. There's so many different ways we all could do these things. Listen to your intuition, because a lot of the times the way you need to do it is the answer is inside of you. Kind of, it really is, but listen to your intuition. It is. It's annoying, but it is.
I love that, because the thing is, not everyone's going to want to do this. That's why sometimes if I'm working with my clients, they just want me to walk them through it, right? They're not going to do it by themselves. And that's totally fine. But I love that what you're doing is exactly what we need to be doing. You're still working with the thoughts that you're having, the feelings that you're having. And as long as you have intention with whatever it is that you know that you need to do, it's going to work, because that's how energy works. It seems like, oh, is that really happening? Yeah, actually,
it really is.
It really, really is. And more science is coming out about why that is the case. If you ever want to watch something super crazy, watch Superhuman on Amazon. And that's where, they talk about things like telekinesis, which is the reason why I did my telekinesis experiment after that. They talk about healing. They talk about being able to change things and move objects from long distances just with your thoughts. So it's like, if that is possible, just simply getting on the treadmill, like you said, and working with your thoughts and your feelings and putting it in the past with your intention is just as powerful. It works. It works immediately. And that's what's so cool.
It is super cool. And like for me, a good reminder, so like for anyone out there who's like, but why? Every day when I wake up, it's mind, body, soul. How can I take care of my mind today? How can I take care of my body today? And how can I take care of my soul today? As of the past few months, I get all that done by 6 a.m. So it's like we have the time to do it, especially when you can figure out what you enjoy and putting it all together. That's why I personally love working out in the gym, because it is working on mind, body, and soul, my affirmations, my thoughts, my emotions. And I think that also brings an awareness that a lot of people lack. And okay, so now I'm getting off subject, because then they just brought me down. So please go out and try new things and figure out who you are, because like, how did that go from there to there? I don't know, but that's what I got.
No, you're totally great. And the thing is, I love that you do your affirmations while you're actually doing something with your body. And I know this doesn't have to do with forgiveness, but I got to say this, because I had a client years ago that, she wasn't going to meditate or journal, but like, this was something, when you combine it with body movement, affirmations especially, because affirmations, I find this to be super interesting, because there's like science done on this too, where if you just kind of sit there and just say it to yourself, if you're still living in a lot of fear, it's not going to go past your brainstem. You have to be able to be doing something different with your body that signals it has a different information that's going to your body. So when you're actually moving and doing something else where your body is involved and you're sticking the affirmation in there, that will actually do something different for you.
I totally could feel that, especially like when in the beginning of, I used to work out a lot, you guys, and then I got sick. And then so in the beginning of the after sickness working out, we would run outside, and I was sick, so my body would be tired. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can make it. And you just start saying these affirmations. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I can do this. My body is strong. You just push your limits. You really find out what you're made of when you combine them all. Because like you said, it's interesting too, because it's almost like your body has to match the vibration of those thoughts at that time.
Correct. That's exactly it. It's a frequency thing. So if they don't match, your body's going to be like, I don't understand what it is that you're saying to me. Like this doesn't work.
Interesting.
So it's all because your body has its own consciousness and its own frequency, right? It's in the 3D. So even though we could be trying to switch beliefs and things around, And that could be of a higher vibration. If they don't match, then they're going to cancel each other out, essentially. So yeah, so that's why it's so important. I'm glad that you said that, because that they have to be combined in their efforts together in a conscious way.
And if everybody just noticed, that was me listening to my intuition, and my intuition, you are so connected. You have all the information in there. Yeah. We can say the same thing, get it completely different, but it's the same. That's cool. That was
cool. Yes. So, but yeah, so if does anyone have any questions at all? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up, and I'll be on Jazz's Facebook here. Is it at 2? Is it at 2?
Yes, 2 your time, yes.
At 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. So
let's do it.
Yes, but thank you everyone for joining. This was an awesome conversation. Very deep. I love it. So yeah.
It was probably my favorite one thus far.
Yes, this was really, really good. All right. So, but otherwise we'll see you over on Jazz's page, and we'll see you again next time. We'll be doing regular conversations, by the way. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, and talk about it from our perspectives as healers, psychic mediums, then definitely toss it our way. Yay. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye guys.
All right. Bye.